Dispatch 57A. Satellite. The moment that a ship breaks through from the long black into the twilight mirage is breathtaking. Every new arrival splits the difference between violence and creation. With the divine fleet licking its wounds, any unexpected change carries threat. But as we learned a long time ago, threat carries possibility. So, when the sable curvature of the HSS Mercury's kiss disturbed the pomegranate blots of Empyrean's false nebula, I knew things were about to get interesting. Which, Satellite, makes my job a whole lot more tolerable. But as I watched that ship hang in the clouds above the floating city of Seance, looking down on that impossible open-aired metropolis in the stars, I wondered for a moment if it might be okay that my tenure here be boring, that perhaps my desire for more active afternoons should come second to maintaining the long-lasting serenity of the Divine Fleet. But I have seen the projections, and the projections don't lie. They don't know how. A graveyard's architecture can be sublime, yes, and grieving can be joyous. But that doesn't change the fact that Seance is first and foremost a home for the dead. Welcome to Friends at the Table, an actual play podcast focused on critical world building, smart characterization, and fun interaction between good friends. I am your host, Austin Walker, and today we'll be playing The Veil by Fraser Simons. And if that sounds new, it is because it is new, because we are playing a new season of the show starting today that we are calling Twilight Mirage, which is named after the synthetic nebula I described in that intro. If you've been looking for a place to jump onto the show, this is probably, hopefully, maybe going to be it. Longtime fans will recognize some loose connections to a previous season here, but they will remain loose connections. There's no starter information that you will need to know before jumping on here. It will be a completely standalone show without any recurring characters or anything like that. My agenda, as written in The Veil, is to make the world feel real, to make it high-tech and personal, to make the protagonists' lives interesting and interconnected, and to play to find out what happens. Joining me today, Alicia Akampora.
Hi. You can find me at Allie_West on Twitter, and you can follow the show over at Friends_Table.
Jack DeKeat.
Hi. You can find me on Twitter at NotQuiteReal, and buy any of the music featured on the show at notquitereal.bandcamp.com.
Janine Hawkins.
I'm Janine Hawkins. I'm at Bleating Heart on Twitter, and since I haven't said it in a little while, I do freelance writing for various sites. Polygon, GameSpot, Waypoint, all over the place.
And you can find me at Austin_Walker, and you can read the things I write and edit at waypoint.vice.com. You can also, for the first time ever, support us doing this. A lot of you wrote in over the course of the last few years saying you wish you could support us financially and help us do more and more. Now you can. You can go to friendsattetable.cash. Allie set that up. It links to our Patreon, where you can, if you'd like to, support us with a couple of bucks. There are a whole bunch of different tiers that you can support us at, ranging from $1 up to $5, $25, $15, all the way up to $100, depending on how you want to support us. And we have different goals and different rewards. There are postcards. There's access to maps and kind of GM notes, and there's some really rad stretch goals, including a bonus campaign just for backers that takes place in a fictional Atlantic city that's a little weird and a little bit paranormal, but also just a lot of Bruce Springsteen, a lot of down on your luck, people who want to get out of town. So go check that out, friendsattetable.cash. So we also recorded a world building episode, which we haven't decided yet. It'll either be in the feed as episode 00, or it will be a link out in the description here. regardless, you can go listen to that if you're really interested in us kind of putting together some of the ideas for this world. I will say it's a little slow, but it is still pretty interesting if you're that sort of fan. If you're not, you should feel completely comfortable just listening to this episode going forward without having to go back. But it's there for you if that's a thing that you want to listen to. Today we're starting the first of 2 games that will take place in this world. We'll switch between this group and the other group, which is Art, Andy, Dre, and Keith, and that will be probably next week. The thing that we should start out with is your characters today. I feel like we should make sure we go over the notes and look at beliefs and introduce your characters, and then we'll kind of roll into a little mini adventure. Does anyone want to go first? No, I'll just go down the list with Signet, because Signet's name starts with ... So it's always going to be at the top of the list.
It came back. My extraness came back to bite me in the ass.
It always does, doesn't it?
Yep, it does. That's very true.
Can you give us your character's name, your look and jam and playbook and all that other stuff, and I'll explain what those mean to the audience as you do.
Okay, so technically, Signet's full name is They Marked Scars of Light in Pitch, Born in Fiercest Purpose, and beheld as the signet sealed upon our pact. She was an excerpt, and her name has become Signet. Right,
which is, an excerpt is the name that we're using for the pilots of these big robots, or kind of the operators of these super powerful AI things called Divines. Which are a reference to a previous season, but again, that's really all you need to know right now is, hey, they're big robots, they're super robots, basically, and you piloted one.
So Signet's look is very feminine, very decorative. She's very lean, because she had a very acrobatic piloting style. Handsome face. Did I mention that?
You did not.
I have a little list of touchstones, and my touchstone for her face specifically is Yuga Yamato, who was Tuxedo Mask in the recent Sailor Moon musicals. As Oscar from Rose of Versailles. Her, but a lot of blonde hair.
Gotcha.
Basically.
Gotcha.
Lots of fancy robes, lots of sort of vertically oriented crowns. There's a type of Russian tiara that
tall crowns? What's the tiara called?
Not a kokoshnik tiara. Okay. Or it's sort of one of those, it's very far back on the head and kind of goes up vertically.
Oh, okay, yeah, I see. Yeah.
I in the world building episode referenced Miss Universe Vietnam 2015's swan crown. So stuff that's very back and up and out kind of stuff.
I gotcha. And then your jam, which is, so your group will be playing a kind of group of secret agents / secret police / investigators for the for a group that is entrusted with protecting the remaining cities and ships of the Divine Fleet. But besides that, you also have some free time where you do other stuff, right? I kind of think of your group as not on reserve necessarily, but there's definitely a Power Rangers-y, oh shit, we got to go do a thing, but not every day, you know? So your jam is what you do when you're not doing that. So what is Signet's jam?
Signet's jam is basically attending to her duties as part of the religion, because she used to pilot a divine, and that divine is one of the ones that's no longer around. People like her are kind of in short supply, so there is, she's kind of put out as sort of a figure, not a figurehead, but just a thing that people can connect to the faith through, because there aren't that many points of connection left.
Right. What we didn't mention what playbook it was by mistake.
Oops. She is the onomastic,
which is vaguely, which is kind of the thing you are, right? Which is you are the last of a religious order, basically.
Yes.
And the religious order in question that we figured out was that you're the last excerpt from the sort of divine that you had. Is that what we ended up on?
Yeah, I think that's where we ended up.
So there were kind of 3 stages of divines. The first divines were made by people forever ago, 100,000 years ago. I don't know that that's the actual like timeline math, but an unquestioningly long period of time ago. And those were just big robots that were made by people that had democratic virtues assigned to them, things like liberty. And then sometime in the more recent past, in the last 30,000 years or so, there were divines made by synthetic life forms, by like robotic people, right? By people who were not super powerful, but were just like robots who designed their own divines. And then the third tier were divines that a divine would design itself. Which of the three was yours? Yours was the third kind, right?
Yeah.
And what was the divine's name? Actually, we should note that.
The divine's name was Belgard.
Which is a word that means like a loving look.
It's like, yeah, it's a loving look.
Good. Great. And we'll dig more into that as we go. And again, if you really want to, deep backstory on that stuff, you can listen to the world building episode. But for now, like, it was one that was a very protective robot that was part of this fleet that kept people kind of patched up, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What are your beliefs?
My beliefs are there's no excuse to leave someone in a situation that will inevitably lead to their death.
Good. That's what you did with your divine, right?
I mean, sure.
Okay, good.
Improvisation leads to oblivion. Routines, rituals, processes, and practices exist and endure for good reason.
Okay. Like 101, status quo
like
101.
Yeah, it's very much like her ship's culture.
Gotcha.
The ship she came from.
Yeah.
And my third belief specifically relates to Allie's character. Tender's redemption can't be delivered at the stroke of a bureaucrat's pen. It must become her lifelong pursuit.
That's good. I think that's good for this episode. Before next episode, this is the thing I'm only just noticing because I've gotten like really into looking at people's beliefs and trying to work it out, is how can you make that actionable? What's the I statement in that? And there's something to think about before the next episode. We don't need to go through all of your other stuff, but you have a little bit of money, you have some armor that I'll ask you to describe when it's time to describe your armor and what you're wearing and stuff. Weapons, you have a mech, like, we'll get to that mech if it comes up. The one thing we do need to do that we have not done is there's a thing that this game calls Geary, but I think we're calling it Faith, which is a sort of notion of obligation, a notion of like, you have a relationship with these other people that is, that has a history and that has a sort of push and pull on whether or not you owe them something or they owe you something. And I just kind of like the notion, you pointed this out earlier before we started it, like the word faith is good for this for us. The word Geary, which is what the game uses, is this kind of Japanese concept of obligation. But we're leaving that behind partially because we're just not in a Japanese setting and it feels really weird and like appropriative to use it without that setting. And also even kind of in that setting, it's kind of a minefield. But for us, faith is really interesting, you pointed out, Janine, because you kind of have faith in someone, but also faith on someone. This notion of like, yeah, I believe that you're going to pay me back. Like, I believe that you're going to pay back this favor I did you. But also, like, I don't just believe in you. Like, my belief in you is a sort of leverage also, which is interesting.
Yeah.
So,
it puts a more like utopian slant on the idea of future debt.
Yes, totally.
Which is something notoriously like sinister and bad.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so I should say, like, right now, we are not a dystopian game. We've done 3 seasons of dystopian games, and like a lot of my other ideas for other games we should do have a dystopic bent, or at least a kind of a cynical or skeptical air to them. I don't think this is a utopian game in that I don't think that we're talking about adventures at the height of a utopia, but we are a game that takes place in a utopia in a moment of decline, a utopia under threat, and the world as is should be a place people want to live and want to be in, and not a place that is like shitty. Like the basic structures of everyday life are positive for people. And that's maybe a weird thing for us, but I wanted to give it a shot. So you have 3 kind of faith questions. So these are about other players. I guess they could be about NPCs. There's nothing that says that they can't be, because you can have faith on other players or other NPCs. But the first question is, if you saved someone from the iconoclasts, which are a group of antagonists that are related to your class, if someone saved you from the iconoclasts asking for nothing in return, they have 1 faith on you. So I guess the question is really to Jack and Allie, did either of you ever save Janine's character? Did Tender or Jack, your character, ever save Signet from the iconoclasts?
The big question there is also, like, do they know about the iconoclasts?
Totally. So I think at the start of this game, you've run missions together, right? So there is totally a possibility that they have. There's maybe a possibility they haven't. Like, your boss certainly, maybe, I don't know. You tell me, are the iconoclasts, have they acted on you since you've been awake? Have they come for you?
I think almost certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
The iconoclasts, the description in the playbook is, they're coming for you. They never stop, and they've already taken the rest of your order. Under their disguises, they look like, and then we've described it. Let's not describe it yet. That'll just come up at some point in play.
Oh my god. So the question is, have we saved Janine from a thing that we don't know what they are or what they look like?
I can tell you that.
Well,
we know. We described it in the world building episode. But like,
okay.
I imagine that, like, if we were on a job before and they started messing around with us, we probably did. Like, that seems
that doesn't feel like true to the spirit of the question, right? Like, that just they fucked with our mission, etc. This is like, if they saved you, like, without asking anything in return, like, that seems like a deeply personal and good thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The answer can be no.
I mean, there's also the option of, like, maybe they didn't know fully what was going on there. Mm-hmm. It was just like, oh, Signet, something, just see her in the street or whatever, and there's something coming up behind her, and
right.
Scuffles ensue, or
yeah, I'm still willing to say yes, but like, okay,
well then you can just.
I don't see why not.
Janine is, as long as Janine is cool with it, you can both have 1 faith on her. Like, that's...
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I think that's good, because I don't really have any other stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can figure out how that happened, later, and talk about it after. It's first session.
My build right now is just very faith light.
Right.
So I'm not at all opposed to having that happen.
Mm-hmm. So that will be a thing that Allie and Jack, you add to your sheets under Geary.
Cool.
You have one on Signet. The second question is, if you've allowed someone entry to your sanctuary in order to shelter them from danger, you have 1 Geary on them.
I don't think that would have happened yet.
Okay, that's fair. And then if someone has disclosed major life events to you, thereby increasing your components on them, they have 1 Geary on you for each component.
Right, because this class has those components that, like, when I have those components, I can specifically use them to... Manipulate's not a great word, but is the word for what I can do when I know stuff about people.
I'm going to give you 2 on 2 NPCs, if that's okay.
Okay.
So you have 1 Geary on the remaining excerpt, whose name is... Where am I now? Empyrean's excerpt, whose name is Blooming. Her name is, to the prince, we offered 12,000 flowers blooming in an untouched field. And so you have some details about her personal life, which is that she is kind of stretched thin at the moment. She has been the excerpt for Empyrean since for the last 30 years. And it has been a harsh 30 years. Lots of other excerpts have been killed. And she has been thrust into a position of leadership. And that's not what she wanted. And so that's a component on her. The second thing that you have is a component on the Cadent, who is, so I mentioned in the intro that the kind of prophet of this faith was a woman named Kamala Cadence.
Kamala Cadence.
There we go. Whew, lots of notes right now that I'm looking at. And the kind of descendants of her, the kind of human or organic leader of this faith is always has the name the Cadent. That's the title anyway. And they all have individual names. Also, like kind of like titles. They have their birth name, which no one uses anymore. So they have the Cadent, which is what 99% a huge percentage of people use. And then there is a specific name, which is our holy representative, light in darkness, guidance under Mirage. May she live in peace. And she's the Cadent under Mirage. Is kind of like what the title is, or her like individual name. So the Cadent under Mirage. And the kind of thing that you know about her is that she is very young, but also the remaining divines elected her with great confidence 10 years ago. There were still like 4 divines left or 5 divines left or something. And they kind of plucked her out of school when she was 16 and raised her to the status to replace the previous Cadent who died of old age. And it was in the first couple of years was kind of controversial because she was so young, but then she took to it incredibly well, and she is well loved among the people of the Divine Fleet. I should note that the Divine Fleet at this point is like 9 ships. It is the ships of the remaining, 8 ships. 8 ships of the 8 most recent divines. There are probably other smaller ships there too, but those ships are like these big capital ships that, thousands and thousands of people live on. The Seance, the big ship that is Empyrean's home ship, is hundreds of thousands, millions of people live on that ship. So that is an important note. Okay. Also, briefly, are you an alien? Did we decide if you were an alien?
I think I ended up deciding not to be an alien because of Jack and Allie. I figured like there's like a balancing act of like how much weird body stuff you can do in one squad, Yeah. And I was like, what if I just am normal? It's fine.
Just
like
a
I
regular
don't need to
person.
make up a new.
Okay.
And also, again, there's so much stuff going on with her that it feels like being like, and she's an alien is a little.
Yeah, fair.
I definitely considered it. I did.
Yeah.
Did you say if I had where the Geary situation was with the Cadent? Who has what on what, or is it just a component?
Wait, say that again? They have one on you. The way that question is asked, they have one on you.
Okay.
Which is interesting, which is like the opposite of what you might think, right? But I like it a lot. Okay.
Does it mean that I owe them a favor?
Yes, correct.
Or
they have one faith on you. Correct.
Okay. Right.
And we can get into how all that so in a sense that faith is a currency that you can spend to do a certain set of moves in this game, in which you kind of say like, hey, I'm going to call that favor in, basically. I'm going to lean on you to get you to do something because you have, I have faith on you. Who wants to go next? Unless I'm forgetting something, but I don't think I'm forgetting anything.
I'll go.
Okay. Hi, Jack.
Hi.
Tell me about your character a little bit. What's their playbook and look and concept and jam?
So, I am playing from the playbook called The Dying.
Okay.
And the pitch for The Dying, I'll just read it because it's great. The Dying is suffering from a non-communicable, debilitating disease that is slowly destroying you. You may or may not be aware of your ultimate demise, but what you're aware of is the symptoms. There is no cure, but there may be hope, grace, or whatever you may wish to find at the end of your tale. So I'm playing a body-swapping bounty hunter called 1415, who is transmitted to their targets essentially as data, taking on a body when they arrive at their destination to hide in plain sight. So my jam is that.
Right.
My jam is being a bounty hunter.
So this is
I'm
like
not exactly
this thing that you do with this crew is a side gig, basically. You're like a bounty hunter for hire, but also maybe do good things now and then.
I'm reminded of the moment in No Country for Old Men,
Mm-hmm.
where the assassin in that decides to go suddenly off-piste. And while I think 1415 hasn't gone off-piste necessarily, they are they're doing something else as well as being a bounty hunter.
Yeah, good.
And I think that the boundary between bounty hunter and assassin is probably fairly slim. I'm not sure. I think it depends on what the bounty is.
We've kind of described, so a thing that's happened is, like, ever since the Divine Fleet started being whittled down, people have fled and have started kind of colonies on a few planets, small kind of frontier places. And between that and then other cultures, right? You're kind of this, I'll just give you all a peek really quick at the unfinished map of this kind of space sector I'm working on here. You're between a couple of different cultures, and then there are going to be planets that are just outside of the Twilight Mirage altogether, right? And between all of that, there are lots of clients, you know? And that is a thing that there's work for someone in your job.
Yeah.
So, but it's not, but I don't know that necessarily it is a culture of assassin. Like, this culture is not the culture of assassination necessarily, right? There are people who hire assassins because people are people and they're shitty. But
this isn't like a sort of like a Morrowind style thing of
right.
Like there's constant assassins. And...
Yes, exactly. What's 1415 look like at this moment?
So at the moment, 1415 looks like a gunslinger. They have they look masculine. They have stubble, thinning hair, sort of in their late 40s, mid 50s, looking on the older side. A white shirt, a bandolier. My weapon is it's like a kinetic handgun.
Ooh, yeah.
Which is close and loud. And so the image of 1415 currently in this particular body is definitely that of a kind of Wild West gunslinger.
Good. This is going to go great. What are your beliefs?
Okay, so I have a belief with Ali's character, which is, I don't know why, but Tender is important. Always keep her in my sights. And 14 doesn't know what this is, but I do. And maybe this is the point to say how I'm dying?
Yeah, it definitely is, because otherwise this doesn't make any sense.
So, every time... It's not supposed to go like this. This isn't how the assassins work. But, I have a bug, and every time I make a jump, my data degrades. And it's getting less and less, like, coherent, and the more I jump, the less of me there is. So I'm losing data, and it turns out that one of the first pieces of data I lost is who my target is, because it's Tender. And I don't know that anymore.
You just know,
I don't know
she's
if
important.
Tender knows,
Right.
but I know she's important. And I think, if I'm being honest, I probably think that... I know I'm forgetting things, but I probably think that I knew her once, and we were close, or we were like friends.
And like something happened, there was a rift or something.
Yeah, or that it's very sad that I've forgotten that, and I
Right.
have to do work to make sure that I can maintain that relationship.
Good.
But it's not that; it's that I was hired to kill her.
Good and cool. Here's a question: does your commander know that about you? Your commander being the person in charge of your squad, not the person. Does she know you're a bounty hunter / assassin?
I think she
must,
super does,
right? Yeah.
But I don't think she knows that I was, because she probably wouldn't have put me in a a group with Tender.
Maybe not. Yeah. Okay. What are your other beliefs?
So my other belief comes from the sort of the culture that I grew up in. 1415 and the agency that I work for as a bounty hunter, I guess, or worked for. I'm not sure how that works. Were from the Divine Curiosity. And so my belief here is that I should always shine a light into shadowed corners.
Right. Were you...
There's not necessarily...
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
There's not necessarily a judgment there about like finding something good or it being beneficial, but so much that that's just a thing you should always do.
Totally. So that ship that you were from, the Curiosity was on a kind of a strange ship that it found in the dark of space. And Curiosity was, you described in our world building episode, as being like a swarm of drones, of kind of exploratory drones that kind of dropped points of interest onto a map, basically. It's like, oh, there's something here. There's something here. Go check this out. And then they kind of disappeared into this ship that was called the Sky in Mirrors.
The Sky Reflected in Mirrors?
The Sky Reflected in Mirrors, correct. You're right. Was 1415 born on that ship, or did that just happen?
I think I was born on that ship.
Okay. Cool. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's worth saying for people who didn't hear the world building episode, is that 1415 is not a robot or an AI or anything.
Right.
They're a human. They were born. They had parents. They went to school. They joined an agency of assassins or bounty hunters. Were reduced to data and now body swap across the galaxy.
Yep. Yeah, it's important. It's an important note. And then, do you have a third belief yet? Or are you still working on
I
that
have
one?
a third one, but I haven't found the wording for it yet.
Sure.
But it's perhaps worth saying at the beginning, codifying it almost.
Yeah.
Which is that my character is dying, but I don't want my character arc necessarily to be about the tragedy of death. I'm not very interested in that, particularly in this season. It's not they're dying and that's very sad, because Lord knows we've done enough of that on this show.
Us? Weird.
So I want a belief that reflects in some respect the fact that 14 is, if not ready to go, is getting there.
For a final time.
Yeah.
Not just you throw yourself into death because you know that you can transmit your data back to base moments before you die anyway. But really, truly a belief about being at ease with death. I'm just going to make that note for now on this sheet that I'm looking at so that I can keep your beliefs in mind while we play.
I'll get you actual wording for that soon.
Totally. Sounds good. Okay. I think that's... Oh, no. We have to do Geary, or we do Faith with you also.
Okay.
If you have exposed yourself to future danger by using your gift to save someone else, you have 1 faith on them. Have you done that with these two?
So I get a gift because I'm dying.
Yes.
The thing gives me a gift, and the thing I've picked basically means I can't die.
Yeah.
And that's how we're going to reflect that I can switch bodies.
Mm-hmm.
It's called moves.
It's called the gift. It says, your organic tissue regrows at a rapid rate. You cannot succumb to death until the disease takes you. When you would die, roll plus symptoms on a 10+. It can be hours or days until... it could be hours or days until you awake alone and confused and in a foreign place. On a 7 to 9, you'll be out for a few hours, but none the worse for wear. On an under 6, you'll wake to the comfort of a friend. And it's not that your tissue is regrowing for us. It's that your data is being transmitted across the Twilight Mirage, which is this network, this kind of false nebula that hides the fleet and also works as a network that connects all of the ships. And so that's how that gift works. So have you used that gift to save anybody?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if the party's okay with it, I think we said that they've seen me do it once.
Yeah. So what was that time like?
I think it was fairly routine. I think it was a fairly routine job, and something went bad. There was a shootout, or there was a fire, or we opened a bulkhead door without sealing it properly, and it began to flood or something.
Right.
And 1415 died and then introduced themselves to the crew the next day as a gunslinger. And I think that's the first time. I don't know whether or not that's Signet or Tender, though.
It could be both.
It could be both.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want faith on me?
The other way around. You have faith on them.
Oh, I have faith on them because I
you've
saved
done
them?
this. Yes.
Oh, I thought they had faith on me because they were weirded out by my
No.
thing. Just like, oh, you're a gunslinger now. Okay. We thought you were like a college student. No, I'll take faith on both of them.
Great. If
they're okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
So
can...
you have 2 on me now?
Yeah, and one on Tender.
Oh, man.
Listen, it all work out in the end. If you've confided your outlook on life and what you intend to do since becoming sick to one person only, you have one faith on them. Have you confided yet?
Yeah, I think I have. Can I confide with an NPC?
Sure.
I like the idea that I have confided with, I think there's a person in an office who gives the bounty hunters, names.
Sure.
And I think on late nights, on the phone, giving names.
Like
I've
names to go
basically
kill is what you mean when you say names.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I think the person has picked up the phone and said, like, brightness underwater, so-and-so planet. And I've
Right.
gone like, I've been thinking. And they've, like, sat back and put their feet up on the desk. I think it's that person.
Tell me what they're like a little bit, so I can write this down.
They are a woman in her mid-60s. She has grey hair that she wears in a ponytail. She wears a boiler suit, like a work suit, because the agency is disguised as a cleaning unit.
Good. Well, yeah,
She has to
that adds up. The cleaning unit. Yep, sure.
She has to wear that into work in the morning. And she sits at a fairly featureless desk surrounded by screens and smartphones.
You only know her as Mrs. Castle Rose.
Okay. Is that one word?
Yeah, one word. Castle Rose. Like a last name.
And I have one on her.
Yes, you do.
And she's my handler, I guess.
Yeah, that's the word I've written down in my notes. I love her a lot already. All right. Games are good, actually. If someone knows something important about your sickness that you do not and is withholding that information from you, they have one faith on you.
Hey, do you want some faith on me, Signet?
Huh.
Yeah.
You're really old, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, know a lot of things. And are connected to divines, or was. So, are probably pretty informed?
That's interesting.
I also do have an ear that, is special.
You have a special ear?
I have a special ear.
No, I actually
Can
do.
your ear hear death?
I actually like the notion of, oh yeah, 1415 is one of those. And what? You just know because you were around hundreds of years ago or whatever. Also, wait, were you around hundreds of years ago, Signet? Was that something we talked about and never really came down on?
Yeah, I think so.
So 250 years ago or something.
I think we thought that there, of the
Right.
last batch of divines,
Right.
Belgard was the first or among the very first to go.
Yeah, totally, because that's what put the rest of them under threat.
Mm-hmm.
One of the two remaining ones, Gumption, which was the one that Keith designed, if you couldn't tell by the name, is similarly in a kind of defensive, protective, rebuilding role that Belgard was in, and so that other divine being around is what let them live at all after Belgard went. But Belgard going was kind of like the final bell. Bad. Unintentional. So yeah, 250 years ago or something, you were like, yeah, I know what a thing. We'll figure out what that is later. I don't need to tell you that right this second, That's how these games work. Okay. Is there anything else 1415?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't have any cybernetics.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that this body just didn't have any.
Mm-hmm.
No, gunslinging eyes, no nothing. Just...
Nope. I don't think they're a real gunslinger.
Oh, okay.
I think I can just shoot, and I put on a white shirt.
Okay, good. They do have at least the base level thing of being able to see the mesh around you. The kind of the thing that this game calls the veil, which is this mixed reality world. That's a living internet, because 95% of bodies in this world can see that. The only people who can't are from one specific ship that Andy designed. Maybe this person's from that ship at this point. There's a sub-faith in the resonant orbit, which is the kind of name of this big tent faith, that doesn't believe in kind of actually chipping or in any intrusive surgery, basically. So there's no cybernetics at all. I mean, maybe this body is from there actually in retrospect, but the way that worked was they had like nanomachines instead, and then when their divine died, their nanomachines stopped working, and in fact a new generation is being born without nanomachines for the first time ever. They didn't propagate the way they were supposed to, and so a lot of those people went on to just get a chip put in their brain so that they could see the veil, because that's like, you're part of that world. You're part of, like, everything has existed like this for 30,000 years. It's hard to imagine a world without it. So many things are just part of that world. And so most people are just like, oh, this is terrible, but I'm going to get a chip in my head so I can keep doing my job. But there is a sect of people inside, still on that ship, that are holding their faith, to their chest and really, really holding firm in their belief that their divine will return one day. And they have not replaced that yet. So they are seeing the world without any of the mesh overlay, the kind of internet mixed reality, augmented reality overlay. And it's up to you whether or not you have that base level thing or not in this current body, that is.
Yeah. I think I probably do.
Okay.
If only because we're fairly early on in the game,
yeah.
And I think having access to the mesh
yes.
kind of technically at this point would be useful.
There are moves built around. Like, this was a conversation Allie and I were having before about, like, would people want to leave, want to stop having the access to the mesh? And I realized, like, oh no, everybody in this game has the move Lift the Veil, which is when you can just kind of, like, know a thing. If you want to know a thing, you just know it. You can just make this roll and know it. And like, oh yeah, no one wants to not have that. That's really good. So that's it makes sense to me that this character does have that, even though they don't have a cyber arm or whatever. All right. Yeah. Hey, Tender.
Hi.
Tender, what's Tender's last name?
Tender Sky.
Good name.
Yeah.
Tell me about your playbook, your look, and your jam.
Yeah, so I'm playing the Architect, which is kind of the the class in the system that kind of works in digital environments a lot in terms of, like, designing them and manipulating them. We've also sort of defined that in fiction, and that she was a literal architect.
Right.
Where she was kind of, raised and had training in actually building, like, digital spaces for people to live in. Mm-hmm. Whether that's, like, completely digital or this, like, mixed reality space too.
Yeah.
She doesn't do that anymore.
Things went bad.
Yeah,
right?
things
like
went
that's
bad.
a key part of your situation, right?
I could just go over that now, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
I was actually I don't know if we went over it fully in the start of it, where I guess the planet game is going to be on planets trying to make a colony, and sort of the idea of this world is that there's a bunch of spaceships and they're sort of looking for places to colonize, because that's kind of what you do.
Well, specifically because, so I actually think that the big ship Seance, the ship that you're on now, that culture has a rule that is never perch where there is already a bird. And because of that, this ship has never colonized anything before.
Okay.
It's only tried to colonize barren worlds, right, where there's no other culture, right? It doesn't want to, this divine does not like the notion of displacing anything else or kind of saying us first. But they are now in a position that's like, you're getting down to it now. And so the ground game is going to be a group that gets sent out to, like, try to start a colony while also dealing with that rule. And then also but the other divines did not necessarily have that rule. And you came from a divine, the divine anticipation, which did not have that rule, right? Or did it?
I mean, it had something similar. Like, I didn't write it down anywhere, but I kind of had the notion of, like, that they had the thing to not build on top of anything else.
Sure.
But yeah. Basically, she's been to a planet. She was part of kind of like a ground team to go and do that, and the colony was almost ready, and they just had to go in and like paint it essentially with like the mesh stuff. And things went super bad.
Which is a big deal. To be clear, like it's not just like a paint job. It's not like just like clicking the wallpaper on The Sims. It's like, I know, but I want to be clear for the audience that like what you do is like it's not just decoration, it's structural in this important way that's actually really hard to do without your unique talent. And tools, right? Because you have a special thing, or had a special thing.
I had a special thing. So things went super bad while I was on the ground team. Anticipation died while I was there. So in a reaction to that, me and the other architect who were there, she had come up with a plan to try to combine our cyber brains so we would become a divine together. And I was not into that. So
fair.
I was like, nah. So I kind of pulled the plug on all of that, both literally and figuratively, I guess.
Right, literally the cyber. You don't even. So this class has a section called Cyber Brain, and I think the thing that is that. Because we're friends at the table, the first thing I said, or like the 30th thing I said, because we went back and forth on this a billion times, it's like, oh, what if you don't even have a cyber brain anymore, but you still have the move cyber brain?
Yeah.
What if like the whole thing was you pulled the plug because fuck that, this is bad, and you're bad people, and this is not just sacrilegious, but dangerous, and then you left, and you could still be an architect, even though you didn't have the tool anymore, and that's weird.
Right, yeah, I think of the situation, because, like, I've flipped between calling her an architect and a priestess a couple times, because I think that
totally.
Specifically what she does is kind of divine within the anticipation culture. But, like, the thought of, like, especially with the themes of this game being where there's such a division between what is human and what is machine, like, trying to do that, trying to make yourself a god is, like, a huge thing.
Right.
So I think that, like, she stopped it, and then when they went back to the ship, like, they were like, we're not putting these in people anymore. This is not, like, a role that people are going to fulfill anymore. Like, we're taking your things, and we're going to figure out, like, a plan C at this point.
Right, you'll do this the old-fashioned way or whatever. And there were also people who did just go start colonies on their own without divine authority, and the ground game will have to deal with those people. Yeah, so, try to get them back in the fold. So.
Yeah, so I still have my abilities. My partner is a woman named Open Metal, who I was sort of close with at the time. And I think that she still, like, lives on that ship or here, or I don't really know. Imagine we kind of fell out of touch.
So she was the one who had the idea about the brains?
She was the one who had the idea and, like, developed it and tried to get me on board. And that's my whole deal, like.
And so she didn't, like, go to jail for that. Because it didn't happen?
I guess it didn't happen. I feel like removing your cyber brain and, like, kicking you out of a church is, like, enough. Like, I'm sure she's having a rough time. Like, to the point where I am, like, I don't live on that ship anymore. Like, I went to a different ship to a completely different culture, because, like, I can't just go to the same, like, butcher that I used to. I bet.
Fair.
And someone hired me to kill you.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know that.
Yes.
But,
no.
Yeah.
Her name is Open Metal?
Yes.
Good fucking name.
I like it.
Is that metal or medal?
With a T.
With a T.
Yeah.
Is she still an active priestess?
I don't
like she doesn't. So the thing about this world is, like, I think there's basic income, right? Like, I mean, I actually don't think. I think we talked about in the world building episode was like, oh, there's no currency in the traditional sense. Everyone basically has RAM or, like, memory, the way characters in Nier Automata had, like, memory slots where, like, oh yeah, you can equip stuff, but that's, like, money. We're like, okay, you have 100 credits worth of stuff, and if you want to change your stuff, you can just give that stuff is still worth the same amount of credits it was before. You trade that back in and you get that money back, and now you can take that somewhere else and spend 20 credits on something else. And, like, everyone gets to eat in this world. You don't have to spend money on food. Everyone just gets food. You can spend, extra money to have access to a thing that spices your food differently, but everyone gets decent food for free. So she could just not be doing anything for make faith or gear or credits or whatever. But like, you tell me.
Yeah, I think open is sort of living the life like if you went from being a pope to just a nun, where like that's sort of her penance, where like she's very local and does the like sweeping and like the sort of jobs that she didn't used to do, but is still very like dedicated to it in a way that I guess she feels like she has to be after doing such a heinous thing.
So she is. Does she feel guilty for it? As far as I guess really, so I know what to do with her. Is it a mix? Is it?
It has to be a mix, right?
Okay.
Like, yeah, it's one of those things where like she probably still believes that she was justified at the time, and
totally.
Like, if that had happened, I don't think people would feel the way about me that they do now. But since it didn't, she's like, okay, I get it. But you're like, okay, I maybe went too far or whatever. But like in a way that like she feels that she has to pay penance, but also, you know, Tender on the other hand.
Yeah, let's talk about beliefs.
Yeah, I
also look. Wait, what's Tender look like?
Yeah, okay, so
and Jam
over
also.
all of that. So my look is I'm not reading this verbatim.
No, you're not going to read this out loud?
No. It's a joke for me and you, unless you want to say it out loud.
No, it's all you. That's you wrote it. Allie's written down big titty cat girl with incredible tailor.
Yep. That's it. That's the long and short of it.
Live your best life,
I'm
kids.
living my best life. We're in space. This is an anime again. You know, anyone can exist. Yeah, Tender is a cat girl. She has ears and a tail and is otherwise basically humanoid aside from some cyber gear. I spent a lot of time looking at Vogue runway shows, but I know in my heart of hearts that every outfit that I'm gonna imagine her in is the most recent bodysuit from the Gucci show, and that also Rihanna wore, which is basically like a bejeweled mesh, like a full body bejeweled mesh, but like also with shorts. And like a button down probably. I imagine her like in like coats, but not like military coats like Arya had, but more like cropped jackets with like short capes on the back.
You have written down here capes all the time. Also, if you heard Allie laugh earlier, it's because Janine said, "Excuse me, big titty cat girl shrine maiden." Yeah, good.
That was her old life.
Right.
Okay, this is also another thing. As far as her body, I think of her as being kind of thick with 2 C's, which I have written here.
Yeah.
God, sweet. I hate like the going through the book stuff, but like sweet face, calculating eyes.
Yeah. And then your jam.
My jam is that every...
Oh, so to be clear, you're a cat girl.
Yes.
Like, that's literally... That's not... We live in a world in which you can recreate your image because of augmented reality. There are lots of people who have, like... Who just have, like, a plain jacket, and then they, like, upload a new GIF that runs on the back of the jacket whenever they walk around. And, like, that's a thing people have. Some people also have the ability to, like, change what their body looks like or whatever. Like, this is a very... I said this in the world building episode, but, like, we want this to be a space where, like, people can reimagine themselves into a form that is more ideal for what they really, truly want to look like, in a way that both recognizes the value of bodies, but also recognizes the value of agency. Which is to say that, like, just because a person is only a digital cat girl doesn't mean that that's bad or something. But you're literally a physical cat girl.
Right,
you literally have big ears.
The way that I justified this during the world building episode is that, like, we'd established, like, very sort of basic genetic, like, hobby doing in counterweight. And, like, on a long enough timeline, humanity is kind of blurred in that way. We're like, yeah, she's mostly considered a human, but is also just, like, an anime cat girl. And that's fine. And then also, like, a big part of my class is that I can change my appearance. So she won't always look like this, but this is sort of the body that she was born with and presents in most often.
Yeah.
Anyway. My jam is that on the weekends I run kind of like a weekly lounge, which like settings and design changes every week. It's a digital lounge, so you kind of jack in. It's like a nice like jazz club, I guess, or
Nice,
like
yeah.
a nice like picnic tables by a beach, and like I don't know, it changes every week, so it can be whatever.
Does it have a name?
It's called the Steady, and I wrote
Good.
a catchphrase,
Yep.
which is nothing stays at the Steady, because it
Nice.
changes every
Good.
week, and then yeah.
We
So
we're
good.
fucking. I love this game. I love it so much. I'm so glad we're doing this. This is real. For weeks, have been afraid that I would die before we played the first session of this game. There's a real fear I've had. Like
That's a really weird fear.
I've been
Austin,
looking
I've
forward
got some
to this.
good news for you, pal.
This has gotten me through weeks of my life.
Oh, honey.
Very seriously. So,
No one's more friends at the table than we are.
Yep, always a good time with friends at the table. No one's having terrible ideation ever. So, what's your other belief? What are your beliefs?
My beliefs. My first belief is the most straightforward one, which is never take a shortcut. That was kind of born out of, if you listen to the world building episode, the sort of memories of the ship Anticipation that she grew up on, which was like kind of built around really long spaces and like being able to move from one place to the other and appreciate the journey there.
Yeah.
So that's there. I went a lot of different ways with the bond that I wanted to have with Jack, because he's like their character is a digital person, and I kind of work in digital environments, and I thought there would be some overlap there, but I didn't really settle on anything that I'm happy with yet.
There's something about the fact that, and again, we don't need to work this out now, and we probably shouldn't for time or whatever, but like, during the period when I'm not a body, I'm just data,
Right.
which means that for almost everybody, but perhaps not Tender, I'm just gone.
Right.
There is a gap there that Tender has access to in some way.
Yeah, the like very like one of the early drafts of this bond was like wanting to build you a home to die in, which was like a little much. But like
Yeah, but that's something you could work on, right? Like there is a thing of like, in my downtime, you know, for whatever, 14 is incredibly important to me, and whenever I have free time, I will blah 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 is totally a viable belief.
Yeah. I think maybe that in between I could have a space for you. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We can work on it.
And then my third belief is also sort of a thing where it's like sort of the arc of her that I like want there to be, but like have not. It has to be like boiled down more. It's like it's still like fruit in a pan, and it has to like become a, you know, like a jam.
Yeah, I got
whatever
you.
Yet. It has to reduce is the word that I'm looking for. Whereas like, so a huge part of Tender's thing is that she is not supposed to have the abilities that she does anymore, and yet she does. And that has to feel divine to her in a way, or like fate in a way. So the kind of way that I have this written down is controlling the mesh must be my purpose, and so I will either like strive to protect it, or I can determine what can be seen and what shouldn't. And like those are like attitudes that I want her to have, but I don't know that they're actionable.
They are the sorts of things that could drive a broad type of action. They're not like a clear specific action.
Yeah.
But the thing that for me that makes it really interesting is it comes into conflict with the notion of like you can change the mesh, right? But you also have this notion that like it is valuable as it is in some ways, right? Like you're protecting it, but also reshaping it. And that is, those two things are not clean and parallel. They intersect in really fun ways.
Yeah.
I will say that I'm curious if Tender wants to know about why she can do the things she can do. Or if she's just like, here it is, I'm like this now.
I will say that I think that she's keeping it a secret, so she has not seeked out that knowledge to anyone else.
Right. I will say that is one way that I could easily see something being actionable and something like still tied to this larger arc. Not, you don't I'm not saying you should do this, but maybe on a future belief or something, it could be, because beliefs should change. You should resolve these. Like, 6 sessions from now, you should probably have all 3 of these should be new, you know?
Yeah.
Because when you resolve it doesn't mean that you don't believe it anymore. It means that you're not interested in putting the camera on it right now. It means that you've kind of come to a place with it and it makes sense and we can move on to something else, to kind of focusing in on something else. And so at some point, if you do want to know about it, that's a good thing that you can get lots of XP from, and that you can there'd be really good character arc stuff around that. So yeah. Okay. Anything else? I guess Faith, for you also.
Yeah.
A thing I've learned this week is I spell architect incorrectly all the time.
Mm-hmm. 2 T's.
Okay.
1 H.
Well, I put an extra H. That's the thing that I do. I put an H in the tech side of it, which is just wrong.
I also always do that. 2 T's.
Oh,
1
like
H.
checked.
Yeah.
No, like tech. I put like an
Like
H
checked.
after the E. Like I put TEHCT, which is just wrong.
I am an architect.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, no. No.
If someone else
Take
keeps a
my damn
secret
headphones
about
off.
your subconscious from you for your benefit, if someone keeps a secret about your subconscious from you for your benefit, they have 1 faith on you. Does anybody have a secret from you?
I do.
Oh yeah, but that's not about
That's also
their
a secret
subconscious or about
from
her
you.
subconscious.
Yeah.
Oh, it's also a secret from me, yes.
Yes, true.
Actually, it
Yes,
is.
that is true. So again, it's a secret about your subconscious, which is this class is very much built on. Yeah, it's very much built in like the Inception model of an architect. Like it's very clearly inspired by that, and a little bit of the Matrix style of like this is a cyberpunk game, but it's also a very post-cyberpunk game, a very transhumanist game, a very like just wild side. It is actually a very flexible setting because like the Omnastic, Janine's playbook is at some points they're just like, if this is space magic, it's okay. It's a space magic. You can call it space magic.
It's very open about like, you can explain this if you want. If you don't, I don't know. Just
and so
go for it.
One of the settings that it pulls from is Inception, and so this notion of the architect having a subconscious that can bleed in to digital environments, like fully digital environments. What are your 3 things that are in your subconscious that can bleed over?
So the 3 things that I have are the Memories of the By and By, which is the ship that I mentioned before, which is basically like really big changes in scale to the environment, whether it gets like much larger or much smaller. The second one is Open Metal herself, which is my ex-partner. Partner is one of those words. We went over her, so she can either show up or like some sort of form of her. So when I was making these, I was trying to think of more like visual things than just like, this is Inception and a mad lady is here.
Yeah.
Because as much as I my life's purpose is to write stories about women and how they feel about each other, like I don't want that to just be the thing. That can definitely be part of the thing, but like I'm really trying to move away from it. Which is why my third one is unworthiness, which is basically her guilt about her like not supposed to be having these powers anymore. As much as she feels like it's a blessing, like it's also like this is also heinous in some sort of thing, because like this was taken away from me. And the way that I've sort of written that down is that the powers that I have kind of fade a little bit. So either the like
Can we actually just use unworthiness?
Sure.
I mean, keep going, but like that I can do a lot with a feeling of unworthiness.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I have some examples here that I wrote down that I really like, which is like really wide shifts in like color palette or like items in the environment either like crumbling or like losing focus, or like kind of ripples in vision in the way that she is going to do with the mesh, like a lot.
Right.
Also, I have a parole officer, which was an idea that we had that I like do not want to put down because it's the best.
I love parole officer. Let's write that down immediately. I mean, that could be a Geary question. Does that person know something about your subconscious that you don't?
I feel like the thing about my parole officer is that she shouldn't know that I can do this.
Oh, sure. So she does not know this.
Yeah. So that is not that.
Okay. I mean, it could still be, she could still know something about your subconscious that you don't know.
That's fair.
But like your literal like I'm not saying that that's the case, but I just want to make sure that that's like on the table still.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I'm am willing to involve her as much as possible. But like,
does she have a name yet? Did we get a name for her?
I was gonna give her the name of that other character, but because she's not from Anticipation, she was Helena Vex.
Oh, okay.
Which is HELENA.
Right. Yes.
She is from the Divine Mercy. She's
literally
a mercy officer.
Yes, we decided that your parole officer was called a mercy officer. Like, basically, you were court-martialed, basically, for destroying those cyber brains and for fucking up this colony moments before it was complete. Yeah. And also, some people probably believe you had something to do with the death of the Divine, even though the timing isn't exactly lined up right there. Right, but also you did the right thing because you stopped this person and this group from doing something that was sacrilegious, and so they showed you mercy. And in your culture, you have a mercy officer who's like a parole officer who's like making sure that you're living up to your potential and making sure that you're not, turning back into a criminal, which is a weird thing for what you did. And they probably are who connected you with the group that you're with now.
Yeah, I was thinking of the mercy officers as not just my culture, but like as a ship-wide thing. Even though their ships aren't around anymore, right? But like still.
Wait, who's? Oh, right. Literally from the Divine Mercy.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think their ship is gone. I mean, there were 300 Divines in this culture once.
Yeah.
And most of the big ships from those are gone. Like, we talk about this as having these last 8 big capital ships, but those other bits of the Divines, and their cultures, haven't just been erased necessarily. I mean, I think that probably a great number have been, and that's really sad. We'll touch on that in a moment.
Yeah, but the ones that serve a purpose in that way are far,
a lot of them are probably still around and mixed in with the rest of these cultures, right? And the notion of mercy, one of the things that the mercy culture did was figure out how to, and it's one of the reasons why the culture ended up being kind of utopian, was there's an entire order of people devoted to making sure that there isn't just justice, but there's also mercy, right? We are devoted to bringing you back into society after you've done something wrong. We are devoted to giving you the resources to improve yourself and to, monitor you and make sure, not in in a terrible, no privacy way, in a way that reflects your humanity and recognizes it while still making sure that you're outfitted to do the best you can. And if you can't do well, then we'll make sure that if you're in prison, that it's not a shitty, terrible prison. We'll throw our political weight around to ensure that, again, it's kind of a good world. It's weird to describe that. It's weird we spent a lot of time honing knives and, have decided to use those to, what's a good thing a knife can do?
Surgery?
It still feels scary to me. I don't like surgery.
What about a nice ratatouille?
Yeah, we're making a nice ratatouille instead of stabbing with it.
The ratatouille.
Cutting making some sliced bread,
Some nice sliced bread. Yeah, exactly. We're making a nice meal with knives instead of using them as weapons.
Yeah. Don't get us wrong. It's going to be sad as hell at points.
Yeah. A touchstone.
Everything is.
A touchstone for us again and again has been, for me at least, has been Frank Ocean, whose music often has this incredible, overwhelming, melancholy, but also a great deal of joy and hope and exploration and confidence in himself and in his culture. And that is what I want this game to kind of feel like. This kind of swing between, or the moves between looking off in the horizon in anime shows, right? As the sun is setting, which can kind of have this distant feeling of bittersweet, right? Thinking about FLCL or something like that, right? Where it's the pillows are playing and these guitar hits are coming in and oh, what does the future hold? And I want that feeling, right? Mixed with the sort of Studio Ghibli, running through the open horizons, or running through city streets, and hopefully we get that. But that's a different thing for us, and it's weird to be there, which is nice. Okay. We did your beliefs. We did your NPCs.
We did
your subconscious.
We did not do any gear.
That is what we did not do yet. Let's talk about faith. Right. Does somebody else keep a secret about your subconscious from you?
Yeah. Does anyone here feel like maybe they were, in the zone with me?
Or know something about what happened there?
Signet might in a context, just because a lot of the stuff around that is probably very similar to feelings that Signet herself had in the past.
Yeah.
Like feelings of inadequacy and weird, like, machine syncope.
Yeah.
Syncope is not the word I want. That's fainting.
No, but yeah, I think that that's fine. I think that even in that general sense,
I don't know what that looks like in a more specific way.
I think that that's fine with
thing.
faith. Like, it doesn't. That is not a belief. You're not acting on it. All that needs to be is a reflection of the fact that you have a relationship in which you have faith on her, right?
Yeah, I feel like the word secret here is kind of a hang up, but I feel like if it is something that, like, Signet was able to sort, like, they're kind of two sides of a similar coin. That's the same coin. It has to, that's how that, anyway, but, like,
Coin is a different character. We can't, that's not, maybe the word insight would be better than secret, right?
Right, yeah. I feel like Tender's probably confided in her, because they could, like, sit down and talk about this, but not, like, not something she's actively hiding.
If you've used your cyber brain to change something in the digital environment in order to protect someone else, you have won faith on them.
Yeah, I can do that.
Who have you done that with?
Yeah. People can volunteer, but could we say Corsica, or are we just trying to keep her off of the table?
Nope. Wait, who? That's a different season. Cascara. Corsica, badass lady from a previous season. Cascara, badass lady from this season.
I said that with an A. I melded them, but...
No, that was where the R was. The R was early. That's all.
Yeah, fair.
It's fine.
It's possible that's, like, tied into... Because I had that faith question about, like, who's protected you in the past, and, like...
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's just a trait.
A lot of these things... Yeah. I mean, that's already marked, basically, if that's what that is.
Yeah, if it's the same thing, then let's just say that that's already marked, basically.
That's fine.
Who is Corsica again?
Cascara is... Cascara. Cascara. That'll actually... It's actually Kara. Cascara. Is the commander of the Beloved, which is a group that you belong to, which is the group of...
She's our boss.
She is your boss.
Yeah.
Her name is Pure Cascara. And she is your commander.
Cool.
I'll describe her in the... we would have a notion or a reason to describe her shortly, but I'm just going to link her now because I think she looks dope. She looks like, if you do a search for Zoe Kravitz, Met Gala 2017, you'll find what she looks like. I just linked it in the chat instead for us. She has, like, kind of light brown skin with, like, short cropped blonde hair. And she wears, like, these incredible flowing satin dresses. She's also in a wheelchair. She's from the culture that Andy's character is from, which has the belief of, like, no cybernetics. And she was wounded during, she was, like, a soldier during the thing that like, some of the combat exercises that were happening, that during which Andy's Divine was killed. I guess Andy's Divine actually kind of slowly died over the course of time, but in one of the battles that was happening around that time, Cascara died, or didn't die, but got wounded badly. Sorry. And because Andy's culture, Harmony is the name of the Divine, because that religion believes that you can't use cybernetics, like, she's just in a wheelchair. Like, she can't get robot legs like you have, without like discarding this core belief of her faith. And so she does have, like, a cool cyber wheelchair, but it's still a wheelchair, right? She's, like, sits in I'm trying really hard not to imagine it as the Professor X wheelchair from the X-Men cartoon that floats around. So I'm just going to do my best to think of it as, like, it's like a regular wheelchair. Maybe it has little hover jets on it so she can go up and down stairs and stuff. Like, it's the future, right? But yeah, so, like, that's her deal. And, like, she's like tough and has gone from being a sort of, like, on the ground soldier to a tactical thinker who can kind of, the ship that she was from, the Divine that represented that ship, Harmony, was this incredible again, tactical thinker. Like the thing that made Harmony special was that they could kind of see all the different possibilities around a battle or around a war, and could organize things that way. Harmony was this really incredible mediator, was able to kind of see things from both sides, right? From every possible side. And so when Cascara had to stop being a soldier, she devoted her life to kind of aspiring to the sort of wisdom and kind of speed of thought that Harmony once possessed, and became this incredible tactical leader, which is why she operates the Beloved, this group of kind of secret agents for the faith. So yeah, that is your boss, Cascara. No one calls her Pure. Everyone just calls her Cascara, even though her first name is Pure. So is that it for your faith questions?
You've one
more. If you've taken Solace, no, that's the wrong one. That's a wrong class. I changed pages, and I was like, wait, that doesn't sound like you. Solace, that's a different character. If someone jacked into the digital environment to pull you out of it when you couldn't or wouldn't leave yourself, they have one Geary on you, one faith on you.
I think I'll end up giving that one to Helena, actually.
Okay.
I think that works.
That's good. I like that a lot. Yeah.
Do I just put that as a -1 on my...
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to make a note here that tender, and then open metal doesn't have one on you, right?
No. No.
Okay.
No.
So making sure.
Yeah.
Making sure. Just I'm adding up all of my stuff. That way I have the NPC stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Tender, you are in a waiting room. There's some light jazz playing. You're on a black leather couch. There are like some magazines on a coffee table. In the middle is like a white coffee table. There's a water cooler over in the corner. And there's like one plant by the door in. There is no other doorway. There's just a door in. There is a painting on the kind of opposite wall from the door of... I don't know, what's the painting of? It could be of anything.
Fruit.
Okay, it's a painting of like a bunch of different fruit.
Uh-huh.
It's a big long like mural painting. It takes up like the whole wall. It's just a painting of fruit. And then the only other color in the room besides the painting and the plant is this huge window from which you can look out and see the skyline of Seance. So Seance is the city of it's the city ship of the Divine Empyrean, which is spelled for people at home, Empyrean, Empyrean. And the city is like, I guess I should like give you a brief like overview, I guess. It's like an octagonal like cylinder in space. It is, on each side of the octagon, a city that just on the flat of this cylinder going out into space. There's no dome. There is no, I guess there probably is an interior to like the cylinder, like inside of the cylinder, you can go deep underground, which is where there's probably like engineering stuff and the ship's controls and all of that stuff. One side of the cylinder has a huge booster rocket on it, and there are huge fins that are coming up out of the ground on the kind of sides of it. But besides those fins, there are just buildings, and they're sticking out into the sky, and there are people walking around, and like for them, the city doesn't like turn suddenly while they're walking. They're just on the other side of the cylinder now. And from here, you can kind of like look out and see maybe one of those fins and another, building that's really tall. But you can tell that you're high up above the city in a large structure. And there's like the bright red star of the system that you're in the sky. The star changes every now and then, like not daily, like as you travel through the Twilight Mirage, the ships don't stand in place. They're not anchored to a specific, like planet or anything. They need to constantly be moving because that's the only way that they can remain safe. And the system you're in now has this really bright red star that is kind of hanging in the sky, which is the sky's kind of painted from this almost silky gradient of orange to a deep purple. Like it's flat. It's not, sometimes it's a really cloudy thing because the nebula can appear really cloudy from the inside. But sometimes it's just like flat color. And right now it's this like stark flat orange that goes down from orange through red and into a deep purple. And there's none of the kind of like puffy clouds. There is also a reception desk in this room. And behind that reception desk, there is an ancient black rotary phone that begins to ring. And the receptionist, who is a tall black woman in a pantsuit, kind of like a gray pantsuit, no top, actually just like dress pants with a white blouse with like a black bolo tie. She answers it. She says a few words and then places it on a silver tray and brings it to you. And she says, "A call for you, competitor."
I lift up the phone, hold it to my ear.
You recognize the voice, and it is your commander, Pure Cascara, the leader of the Beloved. And Cascara kind of reminds you of your mission. She asks you first how preparations are going, if you're ready to compete. And you know that you are.
Absolutely.
You are being sent to infiltrate this week's mystery. The mysteries are a weekly event that are kind of broadcast throughout a ship. Every ship has its own version of this. And in the old days, before the age of the Twilight Mirage, back when the Divine Fleet was massive, when there were 300 main capital ships, it was one big thing where it was kind of shown to everybody all at once. The mysteries are a kind of combination of kind of mythical reenactment and kind of interactive video game. Moments of the history of the Divines are replayed, and citizens are elected to go into a purely digital environment and replay those moments. And they can come out differently than how history was. And that is part of the joy of them, is that they can kind of reflect a living history. They reflect the notion of different interpretations of history. And at this point, now that there are only 8 ships left and 2 divines left, they are kind of an aspect of life that people find a great deal of joy in, but also a great deal of faith from. Seeing the histories is a really important reminder of what has come before and the struggles that we faced, and they always underscore the agency of everyday people, and of history itself, that things can change, things can get better, things can get worse. And so we should love what we have now and work towards making sure things are better. And you are about to infiltrate that, Cascara reminds you, because she doesn't remind you, right? Like, I'm just giving you this info. Because a source has tipped the Beloved off to the fact that the group that you all just kind of call the Earth Cult is going to interrupt the mysteries today. There are 3 ways in which you believe that could happen. They could try to hurt or kill one of the competitors, who are playing as a kind of combination of Divine and Pilot, because today's mystery is the story of how the Divines and their earliest adherents fled from Earth across space to a new colony, and found themselves a new world and a new society. It's about fleeing from this disaster. The second way that they could interrupt the mysteries or take advantage of them is that they could try to assassinate the Cadent or the Excerpt of Empyrean, both of whom are scheduled to be in attendance. And the third way is that they might just try to harm the 100,000 attendees who are there in this massive amphitheater. Maybe by doing something directly to them, or maybe by doing something structural, or who knows. So those are the ways that they could go bad. And Cascara has left 1415 and Signet to determine how they want to counter the other things, but she insisted that you participate as one of the competitors and go into the digital environment to make sure that plays out according to the way it's supposed to play out, which could mean a bunch of different things.
It's a fucking new season of Friends at the Table.
Fucking welcome. Here we go.
Can that be our new Twitter bio? Yeah. Fucking welcome.
Fucking welcome. How are you feeling, Tender?
Excited.
Her voice is like a little crackly over the phone line. I guess she'd be in this ship with you. She'd be on this ship, probably. Or wait, here's a question. Do y'all have your own ship? Is there like a home ship for, like a separate little mini base ship for the Beloved?
No. The whole point of it is that we're on this, like, place, right?
Well, you go between, you're not only in Seance. You do this across the entire fleet.
Okay.
But we, like, come together as needed, so it'd be weird if...
Right, I'm just curious, like, where...
If we also had, like, a dedicated...
I'm just curious if you have, like, a ship where, like, a smaller ship. A thing that we talked about in world building was there are lots of smaller ships in this setting in a way that there were not in Counterweight in a previous season, right? So, like, in Counterweight, the season that we played before, there was a sci-fi season, there were, like, a handful of ships. The most ships we ever saw on screen at once were, like, 3, for the majority of the show. Whereas here, like, we talked about adventurers having their own, like, little 2-seaters going off on adventures. And so...
I have a pitch for a cool-ass ship, maybe?
Sure.
What if we have a ship that has a sail? Like a solar sail?
Sure. Yes. Good. Tell me more. What's it look like?
So I like the idea of... It's not like a sailing ship, and I think it's important to say that. It looks like a spaceship.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe the closest thing is it looks like a spaceship that has a wing, like a single wing of like this incredibly fine filament that we've worked, not we, but like the
group.
The Twilight Mirage have worked out how to make very cheaply.
Right.
And it's very energy efficient, and it can catch the light, the multicolored light of the Mirage, and it just skims this ship like a skipping stone.
Yeah.
Across the water.
Across this a lot.
The Mirage. I just like the idea of, like, rather than the sound of engines starting, the sail just opens and this thing kind of lifts off like a dandelion seed.
I like this a lot. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jack, I hate that I didn't know.
Is that called the Beloved, or does that have a different name? We can sleep on a name. We don't need the name this second.
Yeah.
I have a good list of people names. I don't have a good list of ship names right now.
Yeah. I feel like the answer to that question is no, but I don't have an alternative name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to look away from this list of names. Like, I was like, that could work, but no, I'm going to save it. Okay. Excited's a good thing to be. Just be safe out there.
Of course.
Don't give me that lip. You know, things can go wrong. These Earth people.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you, Signet? Which of the, I guess Signet and 1415, which of the two, what are you guys doing with regard to those other two possible threats?
I could take the crowd.
Like in a fight?
And like one-on-one. One at a time or all at once.
100,000 people. Let's go. Crack your neck.
I mean, I don't know. Signet has a more of a connection to the divine than I do.
Yeah, I feel like
and you're also
I
like
would
hella
definitely
famous,
be
right?
going for blooming and the cadent.
Yeah.
Would they like be together?
Yeah, so they would be
in like a box seat or something.
That's literally exactly it. Like, you've been there for these before as a guest. You don't have like a permanent seat. They have a guest seat where you've been invited once or twice. But on this ship, so this is the actual arena is weird because it's a massive inverted pyramid. So that like that has like it's almost like an Aztec pyramid floated on its back, right? That has like 4 giant columns that are keeping it stable, but then it does go down into a smaller point, and then it goes out way further than the giant columns. Does that make sense? Like the at its height, its width is much bigger than its base. It's a upside down pyramid, but it has the kind of like stair like pyramid, quality of a South American pyramid or Central American pyramid. And on the inside, there are like on the pyramid sides, there are like what's the word I'm looking for, where people sit at a stadium, like benches and there's a better word for this.
Bleachers? No.
Bleachers is totally fine. And there is a box like seat where there are a number of those at the lower levels where honored guests can go. This building was actually taken from a previous divine that was the ship was destroyed, but this one was not restored, but like was saved and was integrated into Seance. In fact, that's a thing with Seance is, it's named that because Empyrean has a hope that it will reconnect with the dead, and that is written into the streets of Seance. And so like in this whole district, everything has this sort of the similar sort of aesthetic as this giant upside down pyramid. There's lots of really beautiful arrow iconography that is kind of like resin on the side of buildings here. There's lots of inverted things in this space, like lots of things that like, that's what the base of that thing should look like, but it's at the top. Like that seems to be an architectural vibe in this entire sector of the giant city ship. So yeah, that is I forget what your initial question was, Jack, but that is my answer to it. The end.
I think it was, can I fight everybody?
Yes, and the answer is yes, of course you can.
No, I'm happy to install myself in the crowd. I've probably bought a ticket.
Okay. You've just gone through with the crowd, and we just get a shot of 1415, like getting handing a ticket over or getting something scanned.
Mm-hmm. Buying popcorn.
Yeah.
Or what's the snack? I don't know.
I don't know. What is the snack? Popcorn's good, but...
Churros.
Churros are also good. I had a churro last week. It was good. Yeah.
Lots of like people carrying big trays of fruit.
Yes, definitely.
Edible
kind of
flowers.
like toasted bean.
Toasted bean. The 3 things.
The 3 things.
Fruit, edible flowers, toasted bean, the 3 snacks for the mysteries.
Right. Those are the 3 flavors of churro, actually. So, and then, right, the question had been from Signet, which was, is there box seating? And the answer is yes, there is. And that's the basic setup for it. And yeah, if you wanted to, Cascara could pull the strings to get you into the box seat, or at least near the box seat. Maybe she couldn't, without a roll, she couldn't get you in, but she could get you into a different box seat. So if Signet wanted to be in the box seats with the excerpt of Empyrean and with the cadent, then you would need to figure out a role to do that, or like figure out a way to get in there. But what Cascara can do is basically get you into the area where box seating is, like at a different box seat. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, the whole thing is, I was still setting this up, which is people sit in the bleachers all around it, but then the middle space is like literally filled with the Twilight Mirage, and then when the kind of, once it becomes fully filled in this kind of huge glass center, it then transforms into a 3D space that is a digital environment where the competitors appear, and people watch it that way. So yeah, I guess I kind of want to, what's the picture of Signet here? Because 1415 is now in my mind moving through the crowd, and Tender is waiting in the lobby, where she's waiting to become a competitor, I guess.
I feel like the smartest thing for Signet to do would be to lean on her own church affiliation to get as close as possible to those two, to the cadent and the excerpt.
Are you doing that in the moment, or did you try to like set something up ahead of time?
How much like lead up did we have for this assignment?
A day.
I think that she'd probably reach out.
Sure. So how are you doing that? What type of person are you reaching out to?
Probably whoever directly oversees Signet's work with the church.
Sure. So there's like a proxy.
Because just like a direct, like, I need you to go up the ladder and this is the first step of,
So yeah, let's say that person's name is Nideo, Nideo, Nideo. And let me write that down. So do you do this in person? Do you do this over a phone? Do you do this? Like, what's your connection? How do you make this happen?
This would have been an in-person thing.
Okay. What's their office like visually?
I imagine a lot of like textiles on the walls, like very, not like tapestries, but like printed fabric to sort of soften the hard surfaces.
Cool.
Probably not super colorful though.
Okay.
Like a little muted.
Yeah. So the Nideo has on like a robe that is like a muted green, with a whole head wrap that then opens up to like a cylinder on top of their head that goes like left to right horizontally. And then like he has on some face paint also. And he is working on like looking through some documents that are hovering in front of him at his desk, kind of like digitally. It's just a mixed reality environment, right? So like he's scrolling through what looks like just a scroll in the air, right? But like is a digital thing, but it has the physicality. Light bounces off of it the way light would bounce off of a real scroll hanging in the sky. And when you come in, he like opens them up as if they are a door, and does a little bow to you, and says, Signet, how can I help you?
I'm pursuing some information about a possible threat to the Cadent and to Empyrean's excerpt. I need access to their seating area at the Mystery tomorrow.
Oh, well, we have a very special guest due, so I'm not sure I can book you in the room. Is there anything you can do to convince him otherwise?
I mean, it's not exactly a pleasure trip. It's because there's a fucking
make that case.
Assassination threat.
Make that case in character. I think that's a thing that you can try to do.
Okay, so I think like in this scene and how I imagine this scene, he's like at the desk with his scroll and stuff, and Signet's been standing politely like halfway between the desk and the door.
Yeah.
And at this point, she probably like takes a few steps forward, and like her very light sort of drapey robe cape situation swishes a little bit around her feet, and she sort of leans forward just a little bit, just enough to like display some of her hair over her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, this isn't an entertainment trip. This isn't my own curiosity. This has a purpose, and there's a risk.
That sounds like you are trying to get an NPC to do something you want. And so what you should do is roll. And here is the trick with the Veil, this game, which is we have to figure out what you roll based on what you feel like right now. How are you feeling? Like, before even looking at the stats, like, what is Signet's feeling about this situation?
I think she's very calm.
Okay.
I think she's very much like, this is the thing that she needs to do,
mm-hmm.
and there's no, like, dissonance there. Like, it serves her beliefs and her purpose very clearly.
So then that sounds like maybe you should roll peaceful. So there are 6 base states in this game, versus in traditional games there are kind of things like strength and charisma, or not traditional games, but a lot of other games, dexterity or whatever. In this, there's mad and peaceful, sad and joyful, scared and powerful. And I say those in those pairs because of a system that happens in this game that we'll talk about in a moment. So yeah, go ahead and roll peaceful.
I should just do the normal peaceful.
I think you just click on that normal little peaceful button.
Okay.
And that's a 9. So on a 7 and 9, you choose 2. Either you're going to owe them some serious cred. Your own Geary is in question now. Your own faith. You're going to need to give them something now instead of later. You need to do them a favor first. Or you need to give a piece of yourself to them, body or heart. So you get to choose 2.
God. So wait,
So it's cred, faith. You have to give them something now instead of later. So that could be like, I'll just give you money right now, or I'm going to give you a thing or whatever it is. A favor, like you could tell me that what he tells you is okay, fine, but then you need to do X, Y, Z. And then I'll give you something. Or you need to give a piece of yourself to them, body or heart. Which also feels like faith to me in some regards, but could also be something else. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'm not sure what some of those would look like. Also, I did just want to know like what specific move this was.
Oh, this is sway. You did sway. When you want to get an NPC to do something you want, and their motivations don't line up with yours. In this case, his motivation isn't like, I want this to go bad. It's, I trust that you can do this without getting access. I have other obligations, which is to let my other guest in, basically.
I'm gonna say give them something now instead of later, and do them a favor first.
Okay. So what is the thing you're going to give now?
Oh, God. No, maybe it's the other one. Maybe it's the body one, which isn't in this move description for some reason.
Oh, is it not?
In Roll20? No.
Oh, weird.
Okay, so I'll go with favor and then the body or heart thing.
Okay. So how are you doing body or heart?
I mean, wouldn't you have to, like, ask for something, or...?
This is abstract in some way. So, in my mind, it's like, you'd have to... I'm giving you the agency here because you succeeded, basically. I can ask you that favor, but, like, whatever you think is adequate for body or heart is adequate for body or heart,
I guess my thing is that, like, I don't entirely understand
that's everything from, like, kind words to a kiss on the cheek, like, to anything else, right? Like, if you were playing a femme fatale, you could be seducing this guy right now,
Okay, so maybe some sort of, like, faithful gesture.
Sure, like what?
To like, reinforce the idea that Signet is very devoted and is, like, taking this to a very personal degree.
Sure.
I think maybe she swears a kind of oath, but like uses her full name in the process.
That's good. That's a really good exchange.
Which would be a really fucked up thing to actually say out loud, so I kind of don't want to do it.
You should say it. I want to hear it now that you've said that part.
I don't know how to work that into a whole oath without it just being like a word salad.
Yeah.
I don't know that I want to do that to people, is what I'm saying.
I just want to hear it, because it's a good name.
It'd be something like, they marked scars of light in pitch, born in fiercest purpose, and beheld as the signet sealed upon our pact, am pledging to you my utmost devotion.
Yeah, I think that's super good.
Etc.
Yeah, I think that like,
that's a lot.
that is really powerful, and not something you should shrink from. Like, that's, like, oh, right, you're that. And you're blessing me with that in some way, right? He sighs and says, all right, look, if you can just do me a small favor, I can make this happen. There is a matter of some political urgency. He turns one of the scrolls around in the digital space so that you can see it, or the kind of like in the mesh, and like scrolls through it until there's a picture of a young woman who you recognize is the excerpt of Gumption, the second remaining divine. And he says, she was to be the guest tonight, but we don't have her favorite dish. I need someone to go and collect a few ingredients to bring to the chef, but it's on the opposite side of seance. It would take an entire day, and if you were willing to give that day up, then perhaps I can have the excerpt at a meal instead of in the box with the cadent, and that way you could both be kept happy.
Yeah, that sounds Perfectly reasonable.
You will, of course, also need to pay for the ingredients. I will forward you a refund on that once
the paperwork clears.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Exactly.
I've been at this for a while, I understand.
Allie says we don't have Amazon Prime Fresh. They're very rare ingredients. It's like a thing that only one cube makes on this space station. Okay?
To be honest, the way I thought this was going to go was him saying, "Can you take your mech and go get some groceries?"
Yeah, well, so, here we go. And I think really
this is still fine.
The thing that I'm just doing here is closing off. I'm taking a credit from you for the rest of this session, and that you'll get back, so just like make a note of that. And then you just can't do any other prep things today. You know, we're not going to give you any more flashback time, because like literally you are like the ex-pope who is now going to get someone else's groceries. Exactly. Okay. 14:15. Actually, let's go back to it is now the next day, and you are in Signet. You do get into the box and are allowed to sit in the extra like guest seat that's set up for you. And you notice that neither excerpt Blooming nor the excerpt of the Gumption, whose name I gave earlier and I've already forgotten, Covenant. I did not give Gumption's excerpt's name before. Gumption's excerpt is named Under Starlight. Covenant was etched into flesh and steel. So Covenant nor Blooming are there. The Cadent is. And she is guarded by her personal armed guards. Tender. I think we get a shot of you like hanging up the phone, and the second that the phone hits the receiver, it's like that really nice bouncy receiver. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like you look back up and you're in the digital environment. So I already painted this picture as like, oh, this is the story of how the Divines fled Earth to go to a different arm of the galaxy where they would set up their own society. And this was 100,000 years ago or 80,000 years ago or something. But you have a move, right? Mm-hmm. That says, hey, you get to decide what everything in the digital space looks like, right? What's that called?
It's called reconfigure.
Or no, isn't it even before that? Isn't that just like... It's just subconscious.
Yes.
When you enter any digital environment, you may frame the scene. So you tell me what the scene looks like.
I don't know. I feel like because part of this is competing in this thing, it should stay as it is.
Okay.
It's not espionage in that way, right?
What do you mean?
We're like... She's going into this thing to actually be involved in this thing, and not going into this thing to like get information,
to fuck it up,
talk to a guy, or like hack it, or So, despite this being the first scene she ever does this, I think that it's like, let's not mess. All right, so let me give you. Too much.
I guess I'll give you at least then like what it looks like by default, and if you want to like touch it, you can touch it.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, and actually, I think it's going to get touched a little bit by your subconscious, no matter what. Which is. The way it was designed was like, it's basically a strange race in which the computer plays as the armies of the original society on Earth, which at the time was and kind of the surrounding star systems, was a group called the Orion Conglomerate, which is this like mega corporation, evil cyberpunk society. And they were kind of chasing after the Divines and the people who kind of built the Divines, who are fleeing from this from this kind of mega corporation through the stars. And partially the players have to avoid the armies of Oricon, the Orion Conglomerate, and partially they have to avoid, like halfway through the game, they have to avoid the explosion of a big bomb, basically. And it looks like a kind of a big 3D space that is really abstract in that, like, there are asteroids and planets, but you're also ships that are as big as an asteroid is, and like a 1/3 the size of a planet, which is like not as big as the ships were. It's like a racing video game, right? Like you're doing like Mario Kart in space. But it's just like, it's kind of held up at once as like this deep ritual, but also as this kind of fun entertainment. Like it blends those two things very well somehow. So yeah, that's what it, by default, it's kind of a big 3D space. that has a track. There's kind of a lead divine that takes off, that you follow, that kind of draws a path through space that you will your goal is to follow that one, and survive, basically.
Okay.
So that's what it looks like by default.
Yeah.
The thing that is different, though, is that your subconscious bit happens. And one of the things in your subconscious is that the sense of scale, because of your memories of your home ship, changes. And the planets get way bigger than they're supposed to be. They're only supposed to be they're supposed to be basically the size of these ships, right? Like it's kind of an abstraction. But instead they're this massive thing that like breaks out of the space that it's supposed to. So like there are some people in the crowd who literally can't even see the field because Jupiter is in their way, or they can kind of have to see through Jupiter. It's like a semi-transparent Jupiter or something. And it also just makes it harder for you to see because the planets are big and are blocking the path. And it means that there could be an enemy fleet around every corner. There could be you won't see where the explosions start to go off. 1415, you've settled into your seat?
Uh-huh.
I want to make sure that was true.
Oh, yeah. I've managed to get a seat. I don't know what my view is like.
Yeah. You tell me. What is your view like?
There's a lot of Jupiter.
Okay, good. You're the person who gets stuck on Jupiter. Briefly, Tender, what do you look like in this world? The other competitors are just like mechs, right? Like one of them is a mech that has like a divine aura around their head. And one of them is a mech that has like a big flag cape. One of them just looks like the Statue of Liberty.
Right. This is like her idea of what a divine looks like. Like just a metal box. There's probably like a door that's like engraved or whatever.
Oh, interesting.
I think that the camera still sees her as what she is, which gives me another opportunity to describe her.
Cool.
Which is like a cat girl, but also like kind of, she's still humanoid. The way that I've been imagining her in my head is, if you've seen Master of None Season 2, Eric Wareheim's ex-fiancé, which is, I guess we would traditionally call her kind of light-skinned. I should just get the actress's name. It's Sierra Renee. And that's kind of where like the sweet face from the description from before comes from. But like really high cheekbones, like really light-skinned, but still like a person of color. She has like long, thick, curly, like light purple lilac hair that kind of falls like chest length. Like curvy big thighs and hips and whatever else. And yeah. So.
Right. Awesome. And yeah, so I think the camera sees her from whenever we're like on her, it's her. And then when we go to 1415's view or Signet's view, it's this silver box that's floating in space. There are definitely people, in fact, next to you, 14, there's a person, there's like a dude with like a beer gut, and a big handlebar mustache who goes, never seen a divine like that in my life. You ever seen one that looks like that?
I have not. No. It's a weird one, huh? Hey, is it supposed to look like this?
I haven't been to this one specifically. And then he looks at you right in the eyes and he says, about how many of these have you been to?
4.
He and he says it again. He looks around. About how many of these have you been to? And he gives like a little wink.
It's been a long day. I'm sorry. I've been it's 14, 15.
All right, good. And drops the accent and takes a pair of glasses out of his coat and puts them on. We think they're going into engineering.
Okay.
I already have some scouts down there looking around, and we checked the manifest, and there's one more operator than there's supposed to be.
Okay.
But we can't find them. These Earth bastards. Someone's got to make them pay.